We're live.
We're live?
Yeah, it made it. Hi.
Hi.
How hard is it when we go away and we don't see each other?
Mm-mm,
And
not interested.
it's not fun. This is going to
Mm-mm.
be we've got so much to cover today,
Mm.
including like holidays and all that good stuff and gearing up and getting ready for the new year. I cannot wait.
I know.
Well,
It is very exciting. I'm fidgeting here because I sort of mess things up and I'm not entirely sure what I did.
you
Uh-oh,
know,
where'd you go?
it's part of growing, right? We're growing our
Right.
technical skills every day. A
Yeah,
week
I
and
mean, I'm growing my technical skills a little too often, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, well, the world's changing pretty fast. There's a new
So
thing called AI.
I know. Well, I did a thing while you were away, and I'd attended Jeremy Utley's Power Hour, whatever they're called on the Outlier Project.
Okay.
And he offered up very, very
Hmm.
generously like a whole boot camp for AI. And I have to tell you, like, I use AI quite a bit,
Yeah.
but I'm learning some new tricks from him. So it's been very fun. So when I say I'm like on technical overload, even though I've taken quite a break from everything, I think, you too, right? We've been talking about taking a break from the phone. Um, it has been really interesting. So we're on I think today is boot camp day 12, and I'm like 4 or 5 days behind because I just do them all in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
But it's been really interesting. And he's an AI expert. He teaches at Stanford. I mean, the man is one of the smartest humans on the planet, really. And it's been really interesting. But I will tell you that I can feel my aversion to learning new tech. And then once I get it, I'm
Hmm.
good and I can use it. But man, it takes a minute for sure.
I can hear that. And actually, I even forgot my microphone today.
Oh, you
So here we
did?
are. I'm like so out of it. I've been gone for a week, even from my home and my office. So I came in, I cleansed the office, got ready for all the good stuff and all the good juice and everything that's happening. But I want to hear everything about this privately, about what
Yeah.
you're learning. What are your top takeaways from this AI? I was just on with a client and we were talking about 2025 AI to 2026 AI and how
Right.
it is evolving and changing to be more of a true AI assistant. She used much fancier words than I am. You would understand them. I do not. But yeah, I'm excited.
Oh,
I like new tech because growth is something that's always really important to me. And yeah, we never stop growing unless we're dead, right?
right. And we're not dead, clearly. So here we are. Hey,
Clearly,
we're
we're
live,
not.
by the way. We're live.
We're live. I know. Welcome to Shooting the Shit in a Skirt, which, by the way, is one of my most fun and exciting things that I did in 2025. That you and I finally got this sucker out of
Yeah.
our basement
Yeah.
and into something real. So, couldn't be more excited. And the fact is, we are women in our 50s that we met in our 50s and said, "Where the heck have you been my whole life?" And our daily conversations evolve, we grow. They are literally life changing. And so we are excited to bring this to the world and start hitting record and sharing them with all of you. And hopefully, it's giving you some insights, some hope to also find your best friend in your 50s, to expand your knowledge, to have a little bit of fun. And I'm KL.
And I'm Ricky. And welcome to episode 4 of Shooting the Shit in a Skirt.
I love it. And today we're going to get a little bit personal. It's also one of my favorite topics, but we're talking about hard lessons that moved us forward. We're talking about big wins that we're proud of and anchor words or intentions that are going to guide us into the new year. So if you don't already select an anchor word, perhaps today will be a little bit of inspiration for you. And, I think it's also really great and fun to share and be vulnerable and share the things that get in our way from being the best versions of ourselves too.
So I'm Ricky. And, I think we've been on this topic for a while. And when KL and I met at a retreat in June of last year, it feels like it's been way longer than that. we did talk about our intentions and what those meant, and why they're important and why they're different and how they're different than a resolution, right? Because it's a thing that truly anchors your year in a variety of different ways. So I used to work with this executive coach. Shout out to Mary Beth Anthony. She changed my life. I hired her when I was 49 because I knew that I needed something different, but I didn't know what it was. And I didn't have a way to, on my own, to figure it out, right? We all need people in our lives who can help us change the dynamic, our forward momentum. So I started with her well before 2019, but 2019 was the first year I actually made it an intention and lived by it. Kale started in 2020, and we'll share ours today, but not quite yet. But what we'll talk about is the ones that actually changed us, the new ones we're stepping into. But I think before we do that, I know you guys are going to find this shocking, but I'm going to share a story because we need to ground ourselves in how we get there each and every year. And I've done it differently in the past. And I was having coffee with a friend of mine in Tucson. And I adore this human being so much. He happens to be my massage therapist, but he's so much more than that. And Kale, I know you and I both study Kabbalah, and we'll talk about that a little deeper into the episode. But I introduced him to it. And so we have much deeper conversations than just what hurts, what do you need to work on, what can I focus on today? And in fact, we don't have these conversations when I'm on the table. We have them separately. And he and I try to go to coffee or do something like a sound bath or some kind of woo thing once a month so that we can ground ourselves. So this year we went for coffee. And the last thing he asked me in our last 20 minutes of being together was, I have 3 questions for you. Are you ready? And I said, yes. He said, you're going to take 10 minutes and I'm going to take 10 minutes. I said, okay, I think that's a great idea. And he asked me 3 questions. The first was, what is the hardest lesson that moved you forward this year? Okay, so I'm going to just leave it there for a second. We'll let it float around. Okay. The second question was, what was your greatest achievement that moved you forward this year? And then third, what's your anchor word for the year? And while I'd already chosen my anchor word, I hadn't actually thought about the year in terms of the hardest lesson and the thing I'm most proud of that I achieved this year. And I thought it was a really interesting way to not only ground myself in the present and not go too far back, but also to ground myself, to ground my intention or my anchor word. I'm going to go with intention. I'm just saying anchor word's great, but I prefer intention. It grounded my intention in a way that I didn't expect. And that was pretty damn exciting.
So something interesting that you just said about when you're on the table, energy workers, healers, whatever you want to call them, right? So I think chiropractors and people who maybe study a little bit more Eastern medicine or Eastern approaches, homeopathic approaches, can feel where your energy is in your body. Because I've had multiple situations over my life where people be like, oh, what's happening in this area? You're clearly holding on to some emotion around X, Y, or Z. My niece is studying to be a chiropractor. She's finished in June.
Right.
And she's like, there's something going on and something around your dad. And I'm like, I don't know. And she's releasing that emotion. And then who knows, months later, it can pop up. So I'm sure he is also seeing and feeling based on things that you share with him, where you might be storing and holding on to stuff, which is so important for us to release it, whether we're releasing it via meditation,
right,
or whether it be energy healing, or however you release there. It's so important. Something as, and I know, people who are watching don't know this about me, but I will often talk about poop because I actually think it's a really important
part. I think it brings us together.
But she said, Auntie, there's a flap between your small and your large intestine and it's closed and I need to release it. I had no idea. Since she did that months and months ago.
Yeah.
it has been game changing, and that's game changing because that's toxins if you don't also release it. So there's so many ways for us to release, whether it be actual, physically. I love it. I love that story, and I love that you have that relationship also. And so are you asking me this question, or are you going to start with the hardest
That's a
lesson?
really good question to ask me about asking a question. It's so, I don't know, meta.
Right?
Uh,
What?
so let me ask you first. So
Hmm.
I will serve it up to you the exact same way he served it up.
Okay. So
Um,
here we go.
we do talk over each other, which I actually like a lot. It
I know.
humors me. You know what's funny is I feel it when we're doing this live, and then I go back and I listen or I watch, and I feel like I'm in conversation with you, which I am. But it's really funny how our dynamic of how we work off of each
Because
other.
it's like boom, 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 stuff
Yeah, yeah.
starts happening, and then we're like, oh, and it triggers something else. And so it works for us. Hopefully it works for the people who are watching, and it's not annoying.
Yeah,
It's not annoying for us. It's just how we riff. And I
it
love
is.
it. I
It
love it
is.
so much.
Okay, so aside from the fact that we don't match today, which episode 4, you'd think we'd be getting it together by now. Um, we can talk about that later as well. And maybe that's one of our intentions this year is, twinning. Hashtag
We
twinning.
have been twinning the whole time. So this was the
Right.
first one that is
Right.
by, yeah, default.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, in through the nose,
Got
out through the mouth.
it.
What was the hardest lesson you learned this year? And how did it move you forward? And it doesn't have to, let me caveat this. I apologize. I should have started with this. It doesn't have to be something monumental. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be work.
Hmm.
It can be personal. It can be a boundary that finally you held. It can be a yes you regretted. It can be a no that saved you, which we talked a lot about last week. It can be about something you need to release or something that you broke or a pattern you saw clearly.
Hmm.
Like there's so many different
Yeah. It's
ways to
actually
spin this.
hard to answer this question because I'm a learner, and
Mhm.
I am someone who, if, like I said earlier, if I'm not growing, I'm dead. So I am constantly challenging myself. And I would say this year, so being a business owner and an entrepreneur, that was never in my initial trajectory at a 30-year corporate career. When I think about sort of second official year as an entrepreneur, it was first year, oof,
Right?
we can talk about that in a separate episode. This last year was really about looking at my definition of success and my relationship to money. And I originally had defined success by my title and money,
Right.
right? So as I grew in my career, I made it to the C-suite. Super. I made it as far as I would have wanted to go in that, maybe a CEO for a company, but I did pretty well in my career. And I was always associating the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Never even knew what a C-suite executive was when I first started out. I just wanted to keep growing.
Right.
So when I looked at this last year as an entrepreneur, my definition of success started to change, and it is no longer about title and money. It's about health and relationships and connection and how I want to feel every day.
Mhm.
So that was an interesting change. I wouldn't say that that was really hard, but that was an interesting segue to what I would say is really hard. And that was my relationship to money. I coach people on helping them navigate their relationships to money because it's actually one of the big blockers to how you are negotiating, whether that be a new role, whether that be if you're an entrepreneur, you're negotiating a retainer or a project, or you're negotiating an exit. I coach people on this, and it actually really came up for me this year in a really big way. And I realized that I had some things that I needed to release around money and my
Mhm.
relationship to it, my definition of success. And so that was I would say, I don't even know if I would call it one of the hardest things because I don't see life that way. So I don't see challenges as, oh, it was so hard. Like I know I'm a ridiculous optimist, and that's,
Right.
I'm like glass is overflowing. I just don't look at it as hard. I look at it as everything that happens for me. And it is an opportunity for me to continue to grow. So I saw it as, okay, I didn't see it as something hard. I saw it as something that I needed to unpack. I needed to understand what it was. And as it turned out, it was about greed and about growth and abundance and financial abundance and everything in between.
Mhm.
I There was some guilt around it, that I felt guilty about wanting to grow and wanting more and wanting abundance and this beautiful life that I've created or we've created, my husband and I. And so like this guilt and greed aspect of filthy rich. And, for me, it wasn't so much about scarcity, but it was really about guilt. And so I did some really incredible work in releasing, that relationship that I had. And I wouldn't, again, like I would say, it wasn't really hard, but it was really powerful.
And to be clear, when he asked me the question, the hardest, right? What was the biggest challenge of the year? And I would say with you, while hard may not be the right way to describe it, I do think we've talked about it a lot over the last 364 days, right? It's the end of the year tomorrow. And I think it's really been the work for you to do this year, which has been very exciting. A little bit about the genesis of our relationship. And, when we met, you were definitely in a much different mindset with money, scarcity versus abundance in your relationship, right?
Life. Yeah.
Life, everything. And for me, watching your transformation now over the last 18 months, almost exactly to the day, has been a spectacular thing. And it inspired me in so many ways to do some of the work that I also had around scarcity versus abundance and
Yeah.
what that looks like. And it also fueled my word last year, right? Which was truth and speaking that truth, because that was the thing that you were really working on so hard. And by last year, I actually mean this year.
For
Sorry.
you, yeah. And for me, it was
Right.
2024. Yeah.
Right. And that was really important. So the most challenging or the hardest thing for me this year, there were a couple of things, but I think the main one was I spent about 3 weeks alone in October at our place in Arizona. And what a lot of people don't know about me is I've never really been alone my whole life. I went from living with my parents to living in the dorms to having roommates to moving to Italy and living with my now husband's entire family to moving back to the States, living with my parents to having a roommate to my now husband moving here, and then having kids. Like I've never been alone for any measurable amount of time. And I took about 5 weeks in 2020, but people were coming in and out and visiting, and my son was coming down because it was during COVID. And that's a whole other conversation about how we traveled during that time, and it was totally worth it. But I spent 3 weeks by myself. I didn't socialize, and not even on purpose. I just didn't want to. And for me, there were some really, really dark days and some really blue days and some really great days. But it was interesting, the peaks and valleys that occurred during those 3 weeks that surprised me more than anything else and pushed me in ways that I probably haven't been pushed in a really long time. I tend to fill all moments of the day. I don't have a lot of white space. And while I talk about it with my clients, right? I mean, I'm a growth strategist. My role and what I do with my C-level clients is to get them out of their own way. And part of that exercise is all that, getting some white space so that you can see the forest for the trees. But like the cobbler's children, my shoes are always a mess and I don't always do it for myself. And it was really challenging. But what came out of it were a lot of things. This podcast, right? Because I had an epiphany. I wrote the first episode. I called you And I said, we've got to do this. It's time. I feel it. I knew it in my heart of hearts. I wrote the outline for a book. I wrote the TED Talk that I want to give that, by the way, I still need to apply for. And it also gave me a lot of clarity as I entered. My birthday's at the end of October, and I did this the first, 3 weeks of October. It gave me a lot of clarity around what I wanted to do for my last year of this decade that I've been living in, which was really exciting. So the big thing that came out of it for me was I could see myself at 35,000 feet, which is a really powerful place to be, and how I treat others in my life, how I treat myself, the need for space. But what I love is that I created a list of, it's more than 12 things, but it's a list of 12 things I'm going to do for this last year of this decade that I'm in. So the first was I ate a Sonoran hot dog, which I'd never had before. I have a very sensitive gut, speaking of poop. And because I have a sensitive gut, I stay away from a lot of foods. And this is a hot dog wrapped in bacon, served with onions and peppers and sauce. And I mean, it is really fabulous. And I ate half of one the eve of my birthday. So check. Last month in November, I attended a conference that wasn't on behalf of a client or on behalf of an employer. It was only for me. And I wrote about it on LinkedIn, and it was really exciting. And then this month, I took my whole family and we went and took an archery lesson on Sunday, which I've done archery in the past. I went to day camp and overnight camp as a kid. But oh my God, let me say, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was just an hour. It was so much fun. And in fact, I'm going to write about it this week as we think about intention setting, as we're talking about intention setting, and I reveal mine. But it was a pretty exciting time. So I don't know what I'm doing next month, but I'll keep you posted. But I think that time away, while it was so difficult when I look back on it, it really was. For those of us that are used to get energy from people and are used to being around people, and, like you, I have a complete and total growth mindset, and I kept, fighting the urge to fill my time.
Yeah.
And instead I just sat in it and I wallowed in it a little bit, but I really thought about, like, what is the thing that I'm supposed to learn here? What does the universe have in store for me that I'm supposed to see? And in the end, I could see it all. But man, it was a painful process.
What would you say shifted the moment you finally got it, the moment it finally clicked for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was when I wrote the TED Talk by the pool that I realized what I was meant to do, which is get my story out there, which is talk about relationship building and what that means and putting it on paper. So there was a fundamental mental, can I say that?
You can.
Shift. There was a lightening of my soul and my body that I could feel happening in real time, and just an overarching emotional lift that I didn't expect. Like, I was super pale. I know I live in the desert. I mean, I'm not in the desert now. I'm in Seattle now. It's actually blue skies today. But there was a sunshine or an emotional lift that came in that I could feel in a very, very tangible way. And it was pretty damn exciting.
Will you incorporate this now going forward on an annual basis, consciously this time?
Yes. And part of it is making sure I'm doing it, in fits and starts throughout the year, but also reserving the time at the beginning of October to go down to that sacred place in Tucson and spend time there, or somewhere else, but by myself.
Yeah.
I think October for me, because that's when my birthday is. So, right. The world is shifting for me. My universe is shifting automatically. That's the time to do it. And it was so intense that I feel pulled now to do it annually.
Yeah. I similar to you. I had a lot of years alone, but I go to India every year for 2
Mhm.
weeks. I don't always go alone. Every second year I go alone for that time. And I've, traveled so much for business and I was often traveling alone. That is my sacred time, and
Yeah.
that is my time to journal, to read, to write. There was no internet in the rooms for the first years that I started going. So I started going about 10 years ago. And so you really were, I would read 6 or 7 books each time and
Oh,
really take that time to just journal and write. And I had never done that before. Learning how to have a relationship with yourself is probably one of the most profound things.
I agree.
And not having to fill in that space as I get older, and perhaps it has something to do with age, but I think at any stage that you can do this, having a relationship, it's the absolute best investment you could
Yeah,
ever make, is to
I
have
agree.
a relationship with yourself and not the noise of other people and what they think and what they want and their goals, and how it can hold you back. And we both have, children who are college age, new graduates, starting their careers. Friends are really important, and just
Yeah.
how all of that influences them. There's no better investment than investing in yourself. And I wanted to actually wrap this section of hard, because I love it. It's not painful for me. But people actually remember lessons tied to emotional pain 3 times longer than lessons tied to logic. So interesting.
Say that again, because I think it's important. And I was shifting my screen, so I want to hear it again.
People remember lessons tied to emotional pain 3 times longer than lessons tied to logic. So fascinating, so
Fascinating.
interesting, but another, an interesting exercise to ask yourselves, what was your what was maybe your biggest lesson? Doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a hard lesson, but what was one of your biggest lessons? So let's shift into greatest achievement for the year. I'm going to start with you. What
Okay.
what would you say was? I have so many. Oh my God,
I
so
have
many to share.
so
Tell me
many.
all of them.
I don't want to talk about all of them. It's funny. I'm trying to remember what I told Nathaniel when we had coffee, and it's really weird that I cannot remember it this morning. And I don't think it has anything to do with caffeine. I think it has to do with the week between Christmas and New Year's, about just eating cheese and not knowing what time of day it is or what the date is. So maybe that's it. But I think my greatest achievement was really about understanding what my purpose was clearly,
Mm,
not the bullshit of what I think
sure.
it should be,
Yeah.
because we've talked about this before, right? My shadow self is wanting to be liked. And so I will say things or do things that I think will appease the audience for whatever reason.
Mm,
And I think there's a big, big intrinsic value in admitting that out loud ad nauseum, to multiple different types of audiences. And this is our biggest audience ever, right? But also being hyper aware of that, and really truly understanding the magic that I bring, living in that space, being able to talk about it coherently and not about it being bullshit. And it's what actually sparked this podcast for me, and knowing that it was time. What sparked the book outline, which I promise will come, and what sparked the keynote that I want to do. And I have to say, and we've shouted out to Renee before, Renee Wright, I hired her as a coach because you hired her as a coach, because I saw your transformation. So this year for me was chock full of achievement, because I was able to speak my truth, which was my anchor word for 2025. On many levels, not only on like an existential level, but in my relationships with my friends, with my husband, with my kids, with my family,
yeah.
but on so many other levels. And just quite frankly, admit the things that I've been shoving down, and bring them and let them come to the surface, and talk about them and work through them. And I think my content, even on social media, has changed to reflect that. And I'm not sure, and you're going to find this crazy, and I'm not even sure I've admitted it to you. Like, even doing this podcast speaks volumes about me and my inner gremlin that nod at me all the time. Nobody really wants to hear what you have to say. Just sit back and listen and be the therapist, be the coach, be the person and give advice. But people don't want to hear what you have to say. And what I've learned this year is actually people really want to hear what I have to say. And for me, it was about stepping into that.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh gosh, there's so many things to share. Look, I mean, we're not talking here about metrics and those kind of milestones, because that also was a really
Of course.
successful year. And I think me trying to figure out, is the corporate world my world, or is this entrepreneur world my world? And is this a viable business? That was really solidified for me this year. And I went all in on refining processes and refining where I'm putting my energy. So my year was really about, what am I saying yes to? Because my speaking my truth was 2024.
Right.
And leaning into that and inserting a bit more play. And I think, honestly, my biggest accomplishment is the relationship with myself and the relationship that my husband and I have built. It was a transformational year for us in 24. And I think I love him more today, 15 years in, than I ever did. And it has evolved into something really incredible. And it's not because of him, or it was because of me. It was because of the work that I did on myself so much in 2024. And when I went all in on me and invested in 4 coaches, and that transformation impacted our relationship in a really massive way. He did work on himself as well, so that helped. And I would also say just relationships in general, the relationship with our daughter has evolved in ways that I am so proud of and so happy about, and just seeing her thrive. And what I've released along the way. And I think, on purpose, I would say studying Kabbalah and really understanding how to trust the process, and understanding that everything happens for me, not to me. I've never really been the kind of person that plays a victim anyway. And like, I know that, that's a mindset. And I know it's not always easy, but I don't default to that. And so I think this idea of just stepping into my power and in understanding that it's all part of it. And I've signed up for this, and this is part of my journey and my growth. And the sooner that I accept that, the sooner I can live the fulfilled life that I always wanted to live and maybe thought I was living. But I'm really proud of also not hiding and not, how do I say this? I think there was a part of me in years past that needed to be seen. I really worked on that as well, speaking my truth and releasing that. Whether I'm seen or not seen, it doesn't matter. I want to make an impact. I don't care if you see me. Like, if you want to see me, great. If you don't, that's okay. I want to make an impact on this world. And I have a really big mission. And closing the gender and racial pay gap is something that I'm so passionate about. I get to do that every single day in my work. And that is so incredibly fulfilling. I think like it's just all kind of come together. And I think I feel so rich in the beautiful people that I have in my life, and it's just getting better and better. And I do want to ask, or I want to make another point. Only 15% of people regularly acknowledge their achievements. And those who do experience 27% higher confidence and clarity. So this is also, did you see those TikTok videos where
I don't have TikTok, fun fact. I know.
Instagram.
I also don't have Facebook.
well, Facebook is a bit old, but um,
Shut up.
they have a piece of cake or an actual cake, and
Yeah.
they put little flags in it of all of their accomplishments. And people are doing some cheeky, cute things about it as
Cute.
well, of silly things that have happened as well. But only 15% of people regularly acknowledge their accomplishments. And I think that accomplishments should be celebrated.
I totally agree. And I think we have to acknowledge them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to something that you said, because we've been having conversations lately just about having more fun also. Like this is a more serious conversation than I actually thought we would have today. And I love it, but this is serious business, right? Looking at, what challenged you this year and then what your achievements were. But there's a big piece of it that you and I have talked about, which is just about making sure that we're having fun.
Yeah.
And you said something to me that made me feel so great that I'm going to air it publicly. And this is not Festivus, so this is not airing of grievances or feats of strength. That's a Seinfeld reference, by the way. But rather that you said you've had more fun since we've become friends than you've had in a really long time. You've laughed more, you've joked more, you've cut loose more. I think your husband even said at one point, the way you two talk to each other is like your lovers, not
teenagers.
like
No, he said
girls.
teenagers. Yeah, he said teenagers, because we are, and we're silly and it's playful. And this is a side of me that I think as a professional, I think I always thought I needed to show up in a certain way, in a suit, I've released that. I don't think you need to become an entrepreneur to release that. I think you can do that in any aspect of your life. And, I did improv this year for the first time ever, was scared out of my pants. I did Sally O'Malley. I mean, like, who would have thought Carrie Lynn Shaw would
greatest video I've ever seen.
So those are things. And you have definitely brought that out. My other bestie, Sherry Arnold, shout out to Sherry. She's not on LinkedIn, but Sherry is another person. She's incredibly playful. She is one of the funniest people I know. She's an actress. I always looked at her and just loved that side. And so it's been really fun tapping into it and tapping into that with you. And even, this podcast is intended to leave people with strategy and thought and hopefully some thought leadership, but it's also fun. And it's just two best friends shooting the shit.
Right. I absolutely love it. And I'm so grateful that this year happened. It was a challenging year for sure, but I'm so grateful because what we got to do is cap off the final quarter of the year by starting this. And I think, fun is my number 5 core value. And there's an exclamation point after it, because I want to make sure that while in order of priority, it's important, I tend to push it to the bottom, to your point, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I started my own company. I've been an executive. Every time you do this, I can feel what that means.
Yeah.
But I'm a total Yahoo, and I let my freak flag fly, because it brings out not only the best in me, but the best in others. And oh my God, have we had so much fun. We actually need to plan our next trip, by the way. Okay. Yeah. We could go down a rabbit hole with this, but I think we need to get to section 3 of our conversation, which I love, is the anchor word and the intention for 2026. My first intention is that I'm going to get a better light so that I don't look like I'm in the dark all the time. But my real intention for the year, if you're are you ready? Can I launch?
I'm ready. Launch it.
I pulled it up and now it's not here for me, of course. My intention for the year is ignite. And it's ignite for a few reasons. One, this is spurred by you, because you sent me, and I don't study numerology in any capacity at all, but I'm going into the final year of a 9-year numerology cycle that is also coupled with the Chinese New Year of the horse, which is all about forward momentum. And in the data that you shared with me when you pulled my birth date,
Mhm.
the year I was born, the year and the day that I was born, it very clearly said that you have been doing the work. As you move into year 9 of this 9-year numerology cycle, it is about ignite. And that spoke to me in a way that in this life means to spark passion, purpose, and action, moving from a state of inertia to one of fiery engagement by setting intentions, stimulating interest, provoking thought, and or inspiring strong feelings like love, curiosity. It says patriotism, but I don't love that word. Sovereignty, and leading to personal growth and meaningful pursuits. It's about consciously choosing your focus and taking steps to fuel your inner fire for positive change, whether it's a career, a relationship, or self discovery. I
Wow.
am dying over this definition. So I want to share this really just at a high level, but the way I set my intention is right, something ignites or sparks me. I then go and look at the dictionary definition of the word.
Yeah.
Then I define it for myself, which I've done here. And then I do as many as I need to so that I can do what? Right? It's the why. Why does it matter? Why do I care? And if I'm being honest, I haven't actually done the so that I cans, but I've written the definition, which is very exciting. Boom.
Wow. So super fascinating word. And I think it's actually a warning for people. Be careful of the word you choose,
Yes, I think that's a good point.
because 2024, my word was expansion. And like my entire life blew up
Right.
in a really, 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 really positive way. So, but also a really hard way. And it was not so easy. So ignite and expansion kind of come together for me. So it'll be interesting to see how your word comes to fruition for you and
Right.
how it's lived. And actually, when we did this comparison, my year 9 was in 2024. So
Right.
I'm a year ahead, basically, depending on when your birthday is. And my 2025 was more of a real launch year and abundance and relationships and energy. And it's just so when I asked the AI what my word should have been for 2025, it was ignite, but my word for 2025 was refine. And it was refining my processes, how I show up,
Yeah.
because I had done so much expansion the year before.
Right.
And this year it says align could be a vision word. My word of the year, though, is release. And this year is about just not holding on too tight and really looking at all the work that I did. So I started
Yeah.
mine in 2020, and it was from growth to peace to intention to flow to expansion to refine and now release, which is letting go of the reins, and not in a way that is like, yeah, I'm just gonna, float about and fancy about. No, it's really
I'd
about,
like to see that though.
you would,
Yeah, butterfly wings would
me
be
floating
helpful.
around.
Yeah.
I can float a little bit, actually. No, it's really about me just trusting the process and
Yeah.
knowing that there is a bigger vision for my life. And most of that is not within my control. The only thing I can control is how I show up and how I treat others. Those are the two things that I will
Right.
remain focused on, and releasing the process, which is, okay, so if a roadblock happens or speed bump happens, something happens, how am I navigating? And how am I actually owning that as part of my beautiful growth journey, as opposed to, oh, something
It has to
terrible.
be this way. Right. Right.
Yeah. So that release is really exciting, because I think there's some more energy for me to let go of. I think was moments in my year of 2025 where I also got a little bit out of my normal workout schedule. So I'm getting back into lifting. I've been reading a lot of studies about aging and longevity and
Yes.
the importance of lifting heavier weights. So I do bar and yoga and Pilates, and I power walk every day. So I'd move my body every day. But the last few years has been more about flow and align and just like that. And it felt like that's what my body needed.
Right.
The last couple of months of the year, it was like, no, I feel my body needs heavier weights and
Yeah.
to build even more definition. And so I'm very excited about that, and just making sure that I'm carving out that time every single day for me and for my workout, because that's also a really big part of how I show up every day, the energy that I bring. So excited about that. And some new studies are coming out. I don't know if I shared this with you, but that you can actually repair bone loss through building muscle strength. So
Right.
at
Which
any
is why you
age.
need to lift heavy weights
Yeah.
as a woman of a certain age.
Well, and I also just spent, the last week visiting my family in Western Canada, and my
So close.
elderly,
So close to
aunts and
Western
uncles,
Washington.
and seeing them deteriorate, and, just knowing how important it is that we are also protecting this temple, and how I fuel my temple, what I put in it, how I have that energy working. It just helps me be a better human. And so I'm really excited about that being part of my year as well. I'm excited about 2026. I was excited about 25. I can't wait to see all the beautiful things in store.
I know it's going to be great. And I think we have to remind ourselves, right, of it. We can call each other out. We can celebrate. The thing about intention that I want to make sure that everybody listening knows is the reason it's not a resolution is because, right, I'm going to lose weight this year is not an intention. That is a lagging indicator. It's based on something else. If my intention is about my health, is about health or healthy or healthiness, if that's even a word, then you've got a different conversation, because the choices that you make, large and small, throughout the year have to relate back to that word. So a great example, right? 2019 for me was courage. And that was acts of courage, large and small, right? And what I did is I actually kept track of them every day. What are the little acts I did every day of courage? It's a really cool read. But I also blew up my career that year.
Yeah.
That was not what I had planned on doing at the beginning of the year. But when I chose that word, it added fuel to my fire for not only taking a seat at the table. I mean, I was an executive in my organization, but I would always push myself back and away from the table, because I didn't want to get criticized and I didn't want to hear what people had to say. And I was afraid that's my truth. But when I selected courage, it really gave me the foundation to go back to every time. And pushing myself up to the table was a small act. Blowing up my career was a big act that I didn't know I was actually going to do, but it fueled me. The next year, and I choose my words very carefully, as do you, the next year, 2020, was breathe, because I was taking on a new role in a new organization, not in the glammy agency world. And I just, having courage as your intention in 2019 was huge. And I just needed to rest back, and I needed to rest. And it was brilliant. What's really interesting is I went through all my years as well, because I keep track of them. I cannot find my words for 23 and 24. And I don't know why. I don't know where they are. I scoured my phone this morning before we got on this line, and I have no idea where they are or what they were. So either I was half-assed thinking about them and didn't actually do it.
Yeah.
Or they got lost in the shuffle and they don't matter. And as you said, the universe, right, doesn't do things to us. It does things for us. And maybe I just needed a big ass rest. I don't know.
And maybe it doesn't matter that much, right? Like I write a post about it every year on LinkedIn. My newsletter is going to be about it today. So I like to keep track of it, but I can't always remember them, which is also really interesting. Like I remember flow. growth was my 2020, and it's always been part of my journey. So I don't know that that's such an intention, but it's interesting to see how am I going to grow. I love
I
the
think that's a
courage.
core value, which we should also do an episode on core values. I
Oh, I
think that's
love that. Yeah, great idea. But flow was a really important one because that was, yeah, well, 2020 growth, obviously, as a CHRO, you can imagine what that was like,
yeah,
run, inside an organization. And I needed the next year to be peaceful.
yeah, yeah.
And then being more intentional about where I put my energy, then flow, then expansion. I will never forget expansion. I will never forget refine. And because it was really about like when you blow up that much, you
Yes.
have to now
Agreed.
come back and refine or rest, right? To your point, or
Yeah.
to go in flow and release. I mean, I am going to be reminding myself
I
day
can't
in and day
wait.
out, KL, let
Let
go,
go.
let go. You're not
Yeah.
in control.
Yeah.
There's something though that you were talking about intentions and the importance of intentions or words or whatever you want to call them. I am not a fan of resolutions, and it's in fact why I've never ever set them. People who set an intention word are 80% more likely to follow through on behavioral changes than people who create resolutions. This is from the
It's
Journal
my
of
it's my favorite statistic of all time.
Yeah. It's
Favorite.
80% more likely. Now,
Yeah.
I also love to do an exercise, and I have my clients do this exercise at the beginning of our working relationship. It can be something that you do every year as well. I've done it for myself every year. And when you look back at the end of the year, you go, oh my gosh, every single one of those things will come true. And I always am a believer of handwriting it, not a believer
Yes.
of typing it.
You are right on.
Handwriting,
That's where my brain was going. So you're,
super important.
yes.
And it starts with I am. And
Yeah.
it is everything you are in this coming year. I am grateful. I am strong. I am speaking my truth. I am working out every day. I am powerful. I am learning. I am growing. I am in a job that I love. I
Mhm.
am starting a company. I am everything that you are. And you speak it as if it's already happened. And so you write that down, and it's sort of in a little bit of a gratitude exercise, but it is, I have done it multiple years. And when I look back, it's like every single thing that I wrote on there. So whether you want a new relationship, whether you want a new job,
Yeah.
whether you
Yeah.
want to exit your current company, whether you want to start a side hustle, whether you want to find a
Whatever it
way.
is, but you're documenting it, and the act of making it tangible makes it real.
Yes.
So I have a worksheet, and I think it might be a great idea that anybody listening, will put it in the we'll put our exercises in the
Sure.
show notes,
Great
so
idea.
that they, or create a link so they have access.
Yeah.
But mine is very similar what I do with clients, which is what I walked through before. It's about select your word, whatever your word is, whatever it feels like it needs to be. Go into the dictionary and get the definition. Does it still feel like your word? Rewrite it for yourself and what it means. And then creating the so that I cans, which is a very, very similar to I am, but I love the starting with the actually, it's not similar. I love starting with the I ams because it can get you to your word.
It's an I am, and then it's an I will, not an I
will.
can. So for me, the I can is actually that
I want to write
I
this
like
down.
it as
Yes.
it's already in play. Like I can
Yeah.
is insinuates that I have to do it. I am is it's already embedded. And
Yeah.
then the I will are your actions that you want to take to associate it, whether you want to take a training, whether
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to be courageous, what does that actually mean? Where in my life am I not using your courage word? Just as an example, where have I not been courageous? Where am I not in flow?
Right.
Where have I not been intentional?
Right.
So you can then correlate that and say, okay, well, these are the things that I will do in order to get me closer to living that purpose or that word for the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
It's amazing also how word choices attach. And I think we have to be really thoughtful and careful about what we put out in the universe. I catch people in my life once in a while be like, oh, I'm so stupid. That was so stupid.
That makes me crazy. Stop
Mm.
that. Because that
Stop it
self-talk
right now.
is that
Be careful.
gremlin that keeps coming up, and it just
No.
embeds itself throughout all of your limbs. Okay.
No, it becomes your truth, and we don't want that.
We don't want that. So let's wrap it up because we're at time.
Yeah.
This has been such a great conversation today. Really, like, thank you for just being present. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being my person. It's just been beautiful. Love you. So what we're going to ask you to do, your challenge this week is, what was the hardest lesson that moved you forward this year? What was the achievement that you're most proud of? And what is your anchor word or intention for 2026? Write it down. If you're interested in our worksheet, we will gladly send it to you. So DM us on LinkedIn, which you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on YouTube at Shooting the Shit in a Skirt. But tag us, message us, share your word with us. If you want the worksheet, let us know. So keep reflecting, keep choosing with intention, and keep shooting the shit in a skirt.
Love you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.